Hey guys, welcome to another weekly hustle session with me, Kshitij.
And Kabeer.
And today we are going to be talking about a very major pain point that all of us face when we even start our business or even when we are running it for quite a few years. That is how to price our product and services. So, Kabeer, what are we going to be discussing in this session?
Well, this has been a point that a lot of people have asked us about, that how do I price or how much should I charge my customer for my services? Or if I'm selling some products which are either photographic or videographic in nature, how do I price it? So we will take a deep dive and talk about very important things that everyone should consider going into this area.
So I've felt this over the years, and I even felt it when I was starting out. It is very hard for us to decide what is the basic price point that we can actually start our costing at, or how do we actually talk to clients about costing. I've tried different strategies. I have even asked clients at times how much they're willing to pay. So, but at times most of them were failures. I ended up making a loss on my products or services that I was offering, and at times we under budgeted a lot. So what do you think is a process that people should follow, and what are the things that they need to consider?
Um, Very important thing, Kshitij, we have to firstly, I want to make it clear to everyone, we are not going to take a cost accounting or an accounting perspective. This is a business owner's or a freelancer's perspective to costing and pricing, right? Having said that, let's talk about two ways in which you can actually give a pricing to a customer.
Sure.
Now, the premise is very simple. A client has come up to you, they need some work done. So you try and understand what the work is, right? And on that understanding, you calculate in your mind, it should cost me this much, and this is what I can tell the client.
Right.
So it's a fairly simple arrangement, but there are many small parts that you have to take care of. The first is defining the scope of work.
Yeah.
For any freelancer or business owner, could be making videos or could be doing photography or anything in this industry, for them to understand what all is involved in executing that project has to be very clear.
That is true.
So it has to be, so it becomes better by experience, because you are able to visualize and see, okay, this may go wrong, I should take some more time for this. If there is more time, that means there is more cost.
Definitely.
Right? So first thing first, that you have to be able to figure out what is the amount of work, what is the kind of work involved. So that's something very simple, and that needs to be done. But there are two perspectives to pricing. One is called direct pricing.
Okay.
And these are my names and my terms. I haven't referred to a costing guide or anything of that sort.
And we're not accountants. We're not talking about accountancy at all.
Absolutely.
We are actually talking about something that we have felt over the years in business. And what Kabeer just said just a while ago, I would just like to add to that. Even I felt it at times that I did not take care of contingencies in the projects that I was taking up. For example, I calculated my cost basis that I could do the writing bit, I could do the shoot bit, I could do the post-production bit, and I could even deliver it to my clients. But there were times when I got busy and I didn't get time to write, or I didn't get time to post-produce it, or I didn't even get time to even do client servicing. So I had to hire outsiders, I had to hire additional manpower to deliver, which was definitely an additional cost.
And these are the costs that eat away your profit completely.
Definitely.
And if you are bad at estimating, that means you are paying from your pocket to execute the order, and that's not a good situation.
Not at all. Not at all.
So coming back to the point, we are going to talk about two ways of costing. One is a direct way of costing. Right? Let's call that direct pricing. Now it's very simple. You add up all the individual elements of it. Right? And directly you come up to a number. Right? The second way is that you can figure out an indirect way, and that can be done in two ways. One, get into the mind of the client, right? If he or she is willing to pay a certain amount of money, if you are able to predict it, or if they give you some cues or clues while talking, then work backwards from there, that okay, this sounds about right, and I will make it in this amount.
Lovely.
So that's an indirect way because you are not building up to that price, you are working backward.
And you're mostly guessing your costs, or you're trying to understand what is the bandwidth that the client will actually open up to, and they would actually allow us to even do a spending on the project.
Correct. Another way of looking at indirect thing is that you survey or you look at other professionals in the industry who are offering a similar service to what you are doing. Or for instance, if a client comes to me and says that, you know what, I have a wedding in the family and I need you to shoot video and still for 2 days. There'll be 200 people in both the events on both the days. It'll last you 4 hours per day, and they give you paint a scenario. So you know from prior experience, or maybe you've heard in the market, that other wedding photographers and videographers charge X amount of money.
Yeah.
Right? So you don't know your cost elements, but you say that, okay, I will make X thousand or X lakhs. It sounds about right. Okay, I will say the same amount. Okay. So that's an indirect way of costing because you haven't added up your costs.
So you're basically setting costs based on other people's rates in the market. That's
correct.
like maybe competition-based pricing that we're doing.
Absolutely.
And what I felt, and I have done this before, and I'm glad you picked it up, that we have a tendency to mark down and maybe charge less than our competition, because what we feel is that if I am not doing it, my competition will. And there are times when we undercost as well.
True. And you know, I feel, Kshitij, that a lot of it has to do with your confidence in your work.
Yeah.
Right? I don't mean to say that, you know, we don't go through that. We have been through that.
We do.
We also second guess ourselves and saying that, you know what, the competition is doing it at this amount, maybe I should give them a 5,000 rupee discount or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you have to be very clear, and we have to understand that we have to perceive the value that we are giving to the client. The benefit of the service that the client is getting for something like this. The moment we are proud of our work, the moment we realize that yes, what we are doing is important, is critical, and the cost that we are charging is justified, that's when we don't start undercutting costs, or that's when we start actually charging a premium in certain cases. That yes, I'm good at what I do and I will charge this amount of money because I will give value to my client.
Very true.
Right? So it's bigger than just the numbers. It's a lot of ego. It's a lot of underconfidence at times. So pricing has to do with many things. Now, as we go on, we are also going to talk about brand pricing.
Okay.
Right? And I'm going to give you a quick example. Is that someone who's been in the market for 15 years, has developed a name, has amazing online presence,
very true,
does lives, gets called into events, get called into for opinions and things like that. So when a client thinks about that person, he already comes or she already comes convinced that, you know, this guy can do my job.
So basically it's the value that that person has created in the market,
perceived value,
the perceived value, and
exactly.
the perception that the client now carries with them, because they feel that you are somebody who's worth something in the market.
Absolutely right. And that in marketing terminology is called brand value.
Okay.
That you are not paying for the sum total of costs, but you're paying a premium. You're paying a higher value. Because see, the value proposition is very nebulous, right? I can say that this is of immense value to me and I will pay 5 lakh rupees for this. For the same thing, somebody else may pay 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs. So for exactly the same service. So you still have to go into the mind of the client, try and figure out what could be it worth to them.
Yeah.
And till the time it doesn't go below your calculated costs, right? The more you get above that number, that is your perceived brand value.
But definitely.
Right? So let's quickly go into some of the components of what people should really consider while costing.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go one by one. So first, let's talk about direct costing.
Okay.
Okay, that's when you have defined a scope of work, that there are these 5 things to be done. There is a pre-production, there is actual production of shoot.
Definitely.
Then there is post-production to be done. So you kind of make a scope of the
So maybe
business.
you create a list of the costs that could be involved at every stage of that project, be it the pre-production stage, production stage, or the post-production stage. And what I would actually like to add there is that there are times when we forget to add problems that could happen. Or for example, when I started off, there was a time when we would calculate everything, give budgets, get them approved, shoot. Now when the delivery time came, the client would ask maybe for a pen drive for a delivery. I never costed a pen drive. Or they would ask a DVD, or they would ask you to courier it to them, and they live very, very far away, or they would ask you to get it to them, and that cost of travel also was a cost for us. But we never calculated that. So there are times when we majorly miss on very small but still very important direct costs in our projects.
And these things actually take your margins lower. And if you're not able to predict these costs in the beginning, it can really hurt you.
Definitely.
And a good thing to do is, let's say when you are setting up a business, or when you are saying that, okay, I want to get into the filmmaking business, or I want to get into the photography business, it's a good idea to make a business plan. What that means is you will note down on one page what are the different items and what are the different things that you need to do to give that service to the person, right? To whatever your client. And for instance, to write a script, there are many things involved. Okay, you may hire a script writer. Okay, that's the simplest part. Or you may have to actually have an employee in your team itself who gets a salary, irrespective of the number of scripts they write.
Very true.
So you have to take that decision whether to buy a finished script or buy a script, or make it yourself, or either do it personally or do it with an employee.
Very true.
So those are the classic make or buy decisions that need to be done. Now, of course, there are other small things as well. There are overheads. To create a script, you need a laptop. Or you at least need a notepad.
Now, so it's a basic infrastructure cost.
Absolutely infrastructure. And all these are linked to writing of that script. Now, when you outsource this to a person, now they have considered that cost.
And
right?
then
then they charge you appropriately for it. But if I'm doing it myself and I don't cost for a laptop, right? Unfortunately, I'll have to scribble it on paper. I have to scan it and send it to my client for approval. So it's very messy. So you have to factor these things. Now, the other thing is that there may be, this is directly for a script, so which means it's directly for a project. But the laptop is, of course, used for 100 other things.
Of course.
Right?
It's your property, it's the infrastructure that you're working on.
Absolutely. So at times it is difficult to apportion the cost of that item of work. Could be a laptop, or could even be a pen for that matter, right? To one project.
Definitely.
Because it's not that you're going to throw away that laptop and for the next script you're going to buy a new laptop. It doesn't happen. Right? So you have to figure out the cost of that, but also apportion it over a period of time or over a range of projects. Now, these are overhead costs. These are called the costs of running your business.
So there's one more tip that I would want to give to people is based on what Kabeer just said about writing. We have a tendency of not calculating how much space we would need to edit a particular project, which actually turns into a very big cost, because when you start editing, now you need multiple hard drives to edit because you are working on multiple projects.
Voice of experience.
And if you have multiple editors in your team, or if you are collaborating with different editors, you might have to give them the data as well to work on. Or you even need a cloud storage space to share the data with your client. So all these costs need to be considered. What we have started doing over the years is we started charging the clients for a hard drive. We dump the data onto the hard drive itself, create a backup in our own space as well, edit everything on that one hard drive, and then deliver the client the hard drive itself once the project is closed. So that is a very, very important thing that you guys should also consider.
Correct. Now, there are, as I said, this is called cost of doing business, right? There are many elements to it. Could be an office that you've rented or you bought, or it could be something in the family itself. It could be a room, it could be a garage or whatever, but you have to apportion certain costs to it. Could be cost of electricity, internet.
Very true.
Cost of internet, drives, laptops, computers. All these things are costs that you have to incur. Maybe you are buying cameras, or you are renting them for that particular EMIs. All these things are actually, and these are things that you can't really say that I am apportioning to one project. Okay, maybe rentals for a camera can be a
That can be
portion
still
to that
done, yeah.
project.
Yeah.
But the fact is, if you bought a camera or if you're paying EMI on the camera, it has to be apportioned over a period of
Very
time,
true.
over several projects,
Very
right?
true.
But it is still monthly cost,
Yeah.
right? So you have to calculate all that. Again, if you are a business owner or if you're a freelancer and if you're using social media
Yeah.
or if you're promoting, then you're promoting yourself. You're not
Definitely.
promoting a project,
Definitely.
right? So these are costs, marketing costs or promotion costs that you have to think about before you start giving out costs to people, or even staff that you hire. Maybe if it's just a cleaner for the place, all these are costs that will again go from your pocket
Nice.
at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Okay, so once you have these things listed out, make the individual costs, and you come to a number, right? Now, typically, you can do it on a monthly basis or an annual basis. Now, laptops, etc., last you about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So it's good idea to take it on a monthly basis, but for let's say 36 months.
Understood.
So you would divide the total cost by 36, and that will be your monthly cost.
So that's kind of calculating the usage of the value of the product
That's
over
correct.
the time and over
Because
the years.
ultimately you have to come to one number.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be able to calculate that, you can either do it monthly or a daily. Again, you have to figure out, okay, I'm working for 6 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to work for 24 days a month.
Yeah.
I can even have a daily cost,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Of course.
Or a monthly cost. However you want to play it. What we typically do is we have overheads for people, electricity, etc., and that's a lump sum.
Yeah.
But then we say typically, because bills also come to us on a monthly basis,
Very
so
true.
it's an easy conversion that, okay,
Very
this
true.
is the amount of money I need to make minimum in a month.
So I have a tendency of calling it my lifestyle expenses.
Yeah.
Because that is the meter that starts running on the beginning of every month and ends at the end of the every month, and I have to pay it off. So this could be EMIs, it could be credit card bills, this could be the electricity and the phone bills, which will not stop. Even in pandemic, even though when businesses were facing a lot of things, banks never actually stopped the EMI payments.
Correct.
They gave us time, but they were charging interest. So even the moratorium, when it was given, it was actually
just a deferment.
Yeah,
it wasn't really.
It was never they saying, okay, no, you can keep the money. It's okay. We will take it from you when your business gets better. Well, nobody really does that.
No such luck.
And your creditors will always be behind you. And so similarly, you have to cost it, or you have to predict costs for future as well, and of course have backup plans for anything that goes wrong, like the pandemic that hit us.
And there are several resources on the internet where you can, which are meant for media people, photographers, videographers. And if you search well, you will get a list, like a laundry list of expenses that can be there. Some of them are in dollars, which are international resources, but it's a good thing to combine 4 or 5 and make your list of expenses that may be there. Of course, you can add or subtract to that. But again, it's good to have that and have a number in your mind that I need to make at least 50,000 rupees a month, or at least 5 lakh rupees a month to be able to break even. Now, again, we are not talking about the money that you take home yet.
Yep.
Right now, money is only flowing.
These are
It's
the
only
costs
going
that
out.
literally go out of our pockets and don't stay with us ever.
Absolutely. Now, the second part of this is actually direct costs, which are to be incurred for a project.
Right. This could be lens renting, this could be equipment renting,
Absolutely.
this could be
Or even
renting
a person,
talent,
or maybe a makeup artist.
Yeah, so hiring talent or working with locations. Locations are expensive. Anything that you feel is very, very project specific. So these could be costs that could be taken up there.
So this cost is called cost of goods sold, which means it is directly apportioned or directly attributable to that project or that product that you're selling.
Very true.
Now, for instance, if I'm a photographer, right, and I'm in the wedding business, now a lot of people say that, okay, come and shoot, but give us an album or give us prints for all the photographs that you took, right? There's a very direct cost there. Cost of paper, cost of printing, cost of maybe getting some things framed, or the album cost. So they are very different, very distinct costs there.
Very true.
Now, if you don't have a deliverable, which is a physical product, and in our cases, for instance, when we are delivering videos, or we are only sending digital links to people, right? But again, it doesn't mean that there is no cost incurred for that. but it doesn't get quantified under this head. It still goes in the cost of doing business and not cost of goods sold, right? So there's a slight difference there. Now, beyond this, you have to now take the cost of your own time,
right,
and the amount of work that you are putting in for the effort of that project.
And Kabeer, before you continue, we have a couple of people who've asking the question, and this question actually just got picked up by Jasraj, who's asking, I'm a starter, I'm a beginner in the industry, I have zero portfolio, but I have actually spent it's a large amount of money on learning the filmmaking and photography process. How do I cost then? What value do I put for myself? And this was a question from my side also. I was never from the industry. You are not from the industry. We spent X amount of money on our education in something else.
Correct.
Do we recover that over here? How do we cost ourselves, or how do we cost us in the whole process?
So, see, for me, I paid for my own education, right? So yes, if it has gone out of your pocket, it's an investment into this business.
Got it.
Now, when you start thinking as a business person, all the expenses that you make, all the investments that you make should go into your startup costs.
Got it.
Right? So yes, education can go in. Again, it is how you look at your business. Ultimately, if you have to return that money to someone, let's say you took a loan to go to college.
Yep.
So then it's very readily something that you can bring into this business. Right? Or if your parents were generous enough to say that, okay, you know what, I'll fund your education, don't worry about returning it to me, that's my responsibility.
Nice.
Right? Great. Some people are lucky to have parents like that. So don't worry, don't burden yourself to recover that money and give it. If it doesn't have to go out, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Right? But if you've taken a loan and you need to pay, then yes, it has to become a cost for your business, because ultimately the amount of money you make, part of that will go for the payment of that
so
loan.
The EMIs basically.
EMIs, exactly. It could be for education, it could be for anything else.
Even for infrastructure, I feel that we end up buying cameras on EMIs, we end up buying if you're investing into an office, or if you're investing into property, computers, anything and everything that you can buy on an EMI does actually add to the cost, to the overall cost of the project as well.
But you have to be careful about the fact that you have to figure out the life of the product.
Right.
For instance, if you bought a place, right, if you have funds available and you buy a small office in a office complex, or a studio or whatever, then you will not apportion all that amount for 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, maybe over 15 to 20 years.
Of course, I mean, because it's an asset, it's a larger asset.
Absolutely.
So the larger asset, the longer period that you calculate it on.
Correct.
The smaller the asset, like for example, a camera would last you maybe 1 year. The technology changes 2 years on the max. So the whole time frame, or I would say the cost life of a product will change because you will need to upgrade as well.
That's true. And when it comes to taxation or filing your taxes, things like that, there is depreciation that you can charge on these things. And the best thing is to have a CA or have an accountant of some sort work with you and developing these things as well, so that you don't ignore the tax amount. Because that's something that is your responsibility, and that's also what you have to collect from the client to be able to pay it forward to the government.
And guys, be very careful about GST. We've actually faced it. I have actually faced really, really bad experiences with GST, because you have to be very careful on having the right payments at the right time. And please follow up with your accountant, with the GST service providers, the government itself, on that your papers are correct, your numbers are correct, and your clients are getting the inputs what they deserve, because it could lead to some really, really bad fallbacks if something does go wrong.
Absolutely. So this is the law of the land. Paying taxes is not negotiable.
Nope.
Right. So,
but our costs, our rates are.
Yeah, of course. But then you have to be able to have an accountant, have a CA who puts you in the right brackets, so he says that this is the amount of tax that needs to be collected. So all this has to be very transparent, very clear, and it's your responsibility to do it. It's nobody else's. If you're running the business, then the buck stops with you.
Very true.
Right? Now, I was talking about cost of labor and time, that you are putting in.
Yeah.
Again, maybe in the beginning of the business, you will say that, you know what, I don't need to pull out money.
Very true.
Right? So I will not cost my time at this point in time. But my suggestion is that don't start with that mentality. Even if you say that, okay, calculate it, come to an amount, and maybe that can be the discount that you build in. But you must know what you will cost to your own company. Right? Because it's not free.
Because that is time. You're giving your time and you're giving your hard work and your experience to your business, whatever it is. Maybe it could be 1 month to 1 year to 10 years. So all of that does have some value attached to it, and it has a lot of brand value also attached to it, because sometimes you are the brand for your company.
And there's a concept called opportunity cost.
Yes.
What that really means is that, let's say, if you were not a videographer or not a photographer,
very true.
Maybe you had a job in a corporate, what would you be making? So you are actually losing the opportunity to make that amount of money by taking a decision of running your own business.
Very true.
Let's say if I were in a company and if I were making 1 lakh rupee a year in that company, and I say, okay, I don't want that. I want to start my own business. So my cost that I'm foregoing, that I'm, or let's say my, opportunity to make money is 1 lakh rupees a year.
Yeah.
Right? And I say no to that, but I still have to make that amount of money, right?
Right.
So I have to put that as my cost. Okay, I may make a lot of profit on it. I might say that, okay, instead of 1 lakh in my own business, I'm making 10 lakh rupees a year. But that's different. You still have to take that cost as an opportunity. Cost could be anything, could be, whatever. I'm just taking a number.
Yeah.
But don't cost your services as zero. I must say something else here, Kshitij. When you start costing for your own time, there are many things that maybe as a early business owner or as a freelancer that you have to. It's cost of marketing.
Yeah.
Cost of traveling. That when you're going to make a sales pitch to a person, it's your time that has to.
And plus the fuel, and plus the
so the fuel is actually a physical thing. Yeah. So that will go into a different thing. But I'm only talking about time at this point in time. Now, if you say that, okay, I need to go sell to this customer who's based out of Udaipur, and you have no idea that it's going to, besides the cost of the train or the car or whatever. Maybe you've done the costing of petrol and things like that, but you don't cost that one day that you're losing.
Yep.
You could be doing a shoot and making money on that shoot, but you are not doing that. You are actually going by car, driving for 12 hours, and wasting that 12 hours, right? We don't have the teleportation technology right now.
Not at all.
So you have to do the 12-hour drive or 10 hours of train or whatever. So that's time lost.
Yep.
So please cost that. It is definitely something that you have to kind of bear. The other things are even cost of business development, cost of meetings, time spent in meetings.
Right.
You are a lot of times we say that we make money only when the camera is working.
Yeah.
Right. But the fact is, for the camera to start working, there are 10,000 other things to be done.
And pre-production is very, very important cost that we need to consider, because I feel that there are times when we work on projects, we develop concepts, we pitch those concepts to the client, and the client backs out. Yeah. So again, you have put in the time, you have put in the value that you can actually give to the client into that development of the project, but it didn't go through. That is still a cost. It
is a cost, and that goes into your marketing costs or development costs, or at times, if it's a big one, you can say, I learned a lot. So it's my learning cost in the whole thing.
I've been through such projects where it was a 30-day schedule and got transformed into a 108-day schedule for me, and believe me, I didn't even get paid for those 30 days, and the project got through. But those kind of notional losses, or those kind of proper and notional losses, both we have.
They are very real, Kshitij. They are very, very real losses, because what happens is that delays either from your side or from the client side.
Yeah.
Nobody pays for those delays.
Not at all.
Right. So that's a big problem. So one of the things and when we talk about contracts and we talk about terms and conditions and scope, they should also be time bound.
Of course, because you can't have your clients telling you changes endlessly as well, because that is again a cost.
More than changes, of course, changes can't come endlessly to you, but you also have to consider the fact that, okay, even if the client gives you no change, but takes 30 days to give you approval.
That is not how it works.
No, that's not how you costed it. All the phone calls you are making to chase, all the time that you're spending, project approve work and work, and you have to pay your people anyway.
Of course, right? Because the meters are not stopping. Your EMIs are still running, your office rent's gonna still run, everything.
You can't tell your employees, or you can't tell the credit card companies or the banks, boss, approval nahi aaya, aap agle mahine aa jana. It is not going to happen at all, right? So delays cost you, right? And so it's in your interest to predict something or write down right in the beginning that X number of days for approval. If it goes beyond these 2 days, then either there's a penalty, added cost or a penalty or something of that sort. And in fact, we've done this, that we've told the client, take as much time, but pay us first.
Yeah, you finish the payment, you can make the changes. And Absolutely. That was a very recent project for us as well, where we requested, the client was taking their own time to actually tell us the changes in the project, and they were not closing it. But we took a stand and we said, listen, it's okay, we will keep doing changes for you. That is the goodwill that we have in the market with Correct. You also, that we will not back out at any point in time. But we told them, please pay off, and so that we can actually go ahead.
Absolutely right. And the client was, good enough to pay us.
Yeah.
And they came back it did not take them 3 days. It took them actually 23 days to get back, because they were an agency and they had to take an approval from their client.
Yes, very true.
Right. So, these things happen. Obviously, you learn through experience, or the other way to learn is to connect with us. And watch our podcasts and watch our lives.
And I always tell people, please learn from our mistakes.
Absolutely right.
Start making new ones of your own so that we can learn from them. We can learn from them and you can learn from us.
Absolutely
So
right.
It's always a better thing to do it. Kabeer, there's one question which has been going through my mind during this live and has been really, hitting it hard, because I also did something very similar is, when people start charging nothing for their services, the practice where you are in the race to get business, and in the process you do not charge your client because you feel, okay, I have to make this client, I can give him services for free because everything is in-house, I can afford everything and all of that. Where do you think this goes, and how does it affect any business?
That's a real problem in our industry. Unfortunately, everybody with a camera is a filmmaker or a photographer.
Very true. Even with phones these days.
Or with phones, they may be living with their parents and actually not have any costs. Right? But the fact is that you are, by the virtue of picking up a phone or a camera, entering an industry. Right? So you have the responsibility of the entire industry on your shoulders. But a lot of people who are coming in do not consider that as a point that they must think about.
Very true. And people don't even understand. They feel that, okay, I'm just one person. What is the difference one person going to make to the industry? But you do.
Absolutely right. Now, there may be situations that you can say that, okay, I will give you a discount because I'm starting off and I need to make a portfolio. But my honest suggestion and recommendation is that never, actually I shouldn't say never, unless it's very exceptional, do not give 100% discount.
Because see, what happens is you are still hitting your costs.
Absolutely. There are costs to be paid, things to be bought. Let's say if you don't get anything, how are you going to invest in the next camera?
True.
How are you going to move from a kit lens to an actual prime lens or a lens that you really need? Investment. So don't look at it कि मेरी cost cover हो गई या मेरी जिंदगी sorted है. बस तुम वहीं रहोगे फिर.
You will not grow ahead.
You will not grow, because a part of what you have to do, profit margin, which I'm going to come to next, is the part of a profit is actually money that you will put back into the business.
Very true.
Which will go towards buying assets, buying equipment, or hiring better people. Right? So that you can actually up your game at the end of it. If you want to continue to stay at that level, please do your work for your whole life for free. But eventually, you can fool someone once.
Yeah.
You can't fool people all the time.
Very true.
In fact, they will know that you are the sucker, you are the fool in the business not to be charging them.
Very true.
Clients understand this. Clients negotiate just because they can.
And there are times when even the client understands that the job that you're doing, the work that you're doing is very exceptional. It has a worth, it has a value to it, but they do not want to make that expense. Hence, they would negotiate with you to do it for free. Please be very careful while doing it, because if you are not recovering costs and if you're paying out of your pocket, you're not doing business. So
Absolutely.
be very, very clear about it.
Yeah, so we are here for business. We are not here for charity.
Yeah.
We may try and convince ourselves that, I'm doing this for myself, for my art and for my knowledge and things like that. Sorry, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's BS.
Yeah. Very true.
I don't know if I can say this,
Let's
but
not.
it is absolutely BS. You're here for business. You need to make money. And that's how business grows and that's how the industry grows. Now, of course, you have to look at practicality as well. If you know for a fact that the client is going to 2 or 3 people, but the first thing should not be that, okay, let me go down in price.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you totally undervalue your work.
And you are actually jumping to the end result much faster because you're not sure what the final costs are going to be. I mean, I know for once that when we were doing a project long ago, and when I was in the middle of the startup that we had created at that point in time, there were projects where I would say, yeah, let's get this thing on rent or that thing on rent. We could do a better production value, but never charge the client for it.
Sure.
Because I felt, what the heck, we have the enough margins to do it. But what we did not realize is that we were cutting the final profit margins, which were actually paying everything, because everything else had a cost attached to it already.
Absolutely. Very, very well mentioned. Very well said. You have to be able to see these things and put that as a part of your cost.
Very
and
true.
Bring that in. Now, let me also tell you another thing over here, that if you want to be flexible on your costing, it doesn't mean that you should not know your costs.
Yeah.
Know your costs and decide that, okay, this margin I will not charge. That, okay, if I have a 20% profit margin or 10% profit
Very
margin
true.
above my costs, for this business because I need it really bad, or this is a client that looks good on my resume, or this is an entry into a brand new market or a new industry, by all means take a decision, go for it. Or if you say that, I'm willing to go down even beyond the profit margin, and I'm going to go down and pay some costs from my pocket, do that for sure. Maybe you can become a little more enterprising or a little more creative on that. Say that, okay, let's do a barter. Now, this is done a lot.
Or a collaboration.
Or a collaboration. You could do this in the hospitality industry, right? But again, I must say this over here. I've heard of people in the hospitality industry charging practically zero just because they can get free food and a free place to stay.
We experienced something very similar about 3 months ago when somebody, I'm not going to name him, we figured out who he was, went to one of our clients who we were pitching to, did an aerial shot, full property shot, photo, video, edited and gave them a beautiful, I would say really nice final end product, and did everything, all of that for just 1,400 rupees, because the hotel or the property was paying for the food, they were paying for everything. 1,400 was just the fuel of the bikes that they were using to get to the property and back. Which I feel is sheer wastage of talent. I am also against free collaborations until you're getting the value that you deserve. For example, if you are collaborating with a very, very big power player in the industry, maybe 1 million followers or 100K plus followers or whatever, where if they do a shout out or they do a mention or they talk about you in the industry, they will give you value for it, and you will in the end make more money through other means. Or that is the only time you do very well or good collaborations in the industry.
Absolutely right. I mean, and that can be offset by saying that, I'm not spending the amount of money on marketing and I'm getting free marketing.
So that is actually your marketing expenses that you're putting over there. It's actually not free, but it's kind of you saying, okay, if I would spend 100 rupees on a post, rather I'm giving this guy it for free, it works.
Yeah, correct. So there's always a value that is there to it, and you need to understand that value and hence adjust it.
Very true.
Or offer it as a bonus to the client or whoever you're collaborating with.
Yeah.
Now, we had talked about taxes, etc. If you are setting up a business which has registrations and GST and things like that, do take those costs into consideration.
True.
If you're starting a new business, then there is a cost at setting up registrations and all that. That is standard. Of course, you will have an accountant who will advise you on these things.
Right.
But collecting tax, making sure it's filed, all that is your responsibility.
Very true.
And that cannot be negotiated.
And you have to be very careful with what you guys do. Do not miss out on any of that. It is going to come back and bite you very bad in the future.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that we actually started with, Kshitij, I want to go back to that part, is defining the scope of work and terms of work.
Yeah.
Now, scope and terms of work, the other way of looking at it is that is an agreement or a contractual agreement that you should have with your client at the time of starting the project.
Maybe a report or a proposal that really defines the main the KPIs that you're doing in the project, or what roles people are playing, and what is the final expectation that the client should have. So you have to set the expectations right in the beginning.
Correct. Now, let's take an example over here. Now, I have a project to shoot a wedding. Let's just take an example from a wedding. Okay. Now, if you don't ask the client to begin with, what are they expecting?
Right.
Do they expect it on a DVD? Do they expect it as a link?
Right.
Or do they expect an album? Or do they expect large
printouts? Yeah.
Then you're not equipped to giving them a cost.
Very true.
Because you haven't defined the scope of the project yet.
Very, very true.
The scope comes first, then the costing, then an agreement on both, right? You agree on scope, they agree on costing.
Very true.
Right?
Yeah.
That agreement is called a contract.
Lovely.
Right?
So the scope and the
pricing, the costing.
Yeah.
They're getting married, gives you a contract, right? And the contract will save you, or will save both the parties, and you will be able to figure out eventually that it is going to help you, and it is going to help the client, because there is no confusion, there is no last minute hitches that no, we said DVD, but you are giving it to us on a pen drive, or you're going on a CD. No, it is on paper, it's written, you've agreed to it, I've agreed to it, and that's what we're going.
Very true.
Right? But again, we don't be in a hurry. Scope out the work, list out everything, cost it, then have an agreement with it. Now, the agreement can be that there's an advance payment or whatever, and the rest is on delivery, etc. That is a different thing. They're called terms and conditions. Right? But you have to have a scope, which are expectations.
Of course.
Then the cost is based on the expectation.
Very true.
Right? You can't still have a cost just hanging somewhere in the air. It has to be a reflection of what the scope is.
Yeah.
And once you bring them together, that's your contract.
Lovely.
Okay. So we could actually have a completely, one full session on the
contracts. I mean, I think we should actually plan it, Kabeer, in future. And guys, we will have it ready for you. Guys, how to build contracts, even put up some sample contracts for terms and conditions as well, so that you guys can benefit from it.
And there are very good examples internationally on how contract should be done for our industry. So feel free to search, but we will have a separate session.
Something which is very India specific as well, because our country does need some very good paperwork and some things that could save your talent from getting a backstabbing in terms of costing or even payments, which we have also felt over the years.
Correct. So once you know that this is the final cost, you can then have an agreement with the client. Ideally, work on an advance so that they are committed as much as you are committed. and and deliver a good quality product so that they are happy and everything moves smoothly.
Lovely.
One last thing I want to add over here is that there are some people who, so what we spoke about is the total amount of cost, including maybe some profit. So that's the amount of money that you will generate from this business. But a lot of people don't understand the total amount of money.
Right.
Right. They may say, okay, per hour kitna padega, right?
Yeah.
Per picture kitna padega.
Half day.
Yeah.
Half day shoots. I still don't
Yeah.
get the concept of half day shoots because I can't take anything else in the other half.
Yeah.
So for me, it is a full day shoot.
Correct. So be very careful on those things. A lot of times people have different ways of communicating their expectations. If we don't take half day shoots anything beyond inside the studio, right? In the studio, somebody is coming in for a shoot, half day means half day.
Because then we can always get back to our own work, get back to what we've been doing and stuff like that.
But the fact is, you move outside the office, the studio, and you go out for a shoot, do factor the amount of time it takes. So half day means a 2-hour shoot because you will spend time going and
traveling
coming back,
and everything.
Right?
But nobody does travel costs. Nobody is really calculating costs that are not going right out of your pocket, right there, part of the project. But you don't understand is the accumulation of such costs is very big for future.
True, and these are little drains that will affect your profit margins. But at the end of the day, they are going from your pocket. They are going away. And you are not able to take that money home.
Very, very true.
Because it is something that you did not foresee. Or even if you did foresee, you didn't think it was important enough. Right? So whatever your total cost is, if you want to give it by the hour, or if you want to give it by the photograph, or let's say by the video, or however you want to give it, do consider listing out everything. Do consider listing out all the possible eventualities or the contingencies. Keep some margin for negotiating. All of us know that Indians love to negotiate. So do keep some margin for that, and I hope that you make a lot of money and you're able to find this industry very profitable.
Amazing. There was so much to learn in this session, and we've actually covered a lot of the questions that were popping in. I'm sorry I couldn't take your names, but welcome guys, welcome to this live session. Thank you guys for joining in. It was amazing to have you here. And if you are listening to this session on the podcast, thank you for subscribing to our podcast channel, and we will be coming with a lot more in future as well. And if you guys have anything that you want us to talk about specifically, please put it in the comments section so that we pick up those topics for our future live sessions.
Absolutely. There's a lot more to learn, and the place to be is here.
So guys, thank you for joining in. Thank you, Kabeer, as always, to take up the weekly hustle so that everybody gets their business right. And please, once again, the motto of this show is learn from our mistakes, make your own, and then teach us. So take care. Have a great week ahead. Ciao.
Thank you.